I always thought betrayals crept in slowly, like cracks in a foundation, quiet, barely noticeable until the house starts to fall apart. But sometimes they arrive like a slap, unexpected and loud, in the middle of an ordinary day. I was helping my neighbor, Kent, replace 2 busted windows in his guest room. Nothing fancy, just some warped frames and bad seals. But we worked side by side for most of the day, talking shop and trading old high school football stories. Kent's a straight shooter, never been one for gossip, so when we wrapped up, cracked open a couple of cold beers on his back porch, and he got quiet, I noticed. He took a long pull from his bottle, stared out at the fence line, and said, "Look, man, I hate to be the guy to say this, but I think something's going on. With Marissa." I laughed at first. Genuinely laughed. Marissa? She was stable. Predictable. Always working late. Yeah, but she had a big job at a local firm, lots of clients, lots of responsibility. Still, the laugh died in my throat when I looked at Kent. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't teasing. He looked uncomfortable, like the words tasted bad. He said he saw a man, mid-30s, tall, dark hair, leaving our house one afternoon while I was still on site 2 towns over. He wasn't snooping, just happened to be outside at the time, watering plants. The guy didn't look like a friend or coworker. He looked at home. That night, I didn't bring it up. I watched Marissa move through the kitchen like everything was normal, grabbing her wine glass, scrolling her phone, laughing at some clip she wouldn't show me. I watched how quickly her smile faded when I didn't ask her about her day. How she tilted her head, curious, guarded. That's when I knew. Not new in my bones, but something darker, like a pressure building behind my ribs. I went out to the garage later, sat with the lights off for an hour, just thinking. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who suspects and accuses and ends up wrong. But I also couldn't ignore it anymore. By Monday, I'd already made the call. A guy named Grant Matthews came, highly recommended, private investigator, discreet, ex-military. I gave him everything I could. Marissa's routine, her schedule, the names of a few coworkers she always mentioned. I didn't tell him about Kent. I didn't want to start pointing fingers until I had more than gut instinct and a neighbor's word. Grant didn't ask many questions. Just nodded, took notes, and told me he'd have an update within a week. I walked out of his office with a weight in my chest and rage simmering just below the surface. The waiting was the worst part. Every day, pretending. Sitting across from her at dinner, pretending the way she leaned over her phone didn't feel loaded. Watching her leave for her evening jogs, fully made up, like that was normal. Once, I checked her car's passenger seat when she was in the shower. Nothing. Not a smell. Not a hair. She was good at this. Too good. When Grant finally called, I was alone in my truck behind the supply store. His voice was calm, clinical. "We need to meet," he said. I drove straight to his office. The man was efficient, pulled out a file, opened to a page, and slid it across the table. No photos, no recordings. Just his word and detailed notes. She'd been meeting someone. Often. Midweek lunch hours, evenings when she said she was working late. Even weekends I thought she was out shopping. Different places, always the same man. Mid-30s, dark hair. Sounded familiar. I didn't speak for a long time. I just stared at the file, the simple, cruel layout of it. I didn't want to ask what they did, how long it had been going on, or where she met him. That part didn't matter. What mattered was that I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined the shift. My wife, the woman I'd built a home with, planned a life with, was someone else entirely. I thanked Grant, paid him in cash, and drove around town for hours. I didn't go home that night. I parked at a lake we used to fish at together and let the silence sink in like concrete. The next morning, I walked in before sunrise. She was still asleep. I stared at her for a long time. She looked peaceful, innocent. I hated that I still thought she looked beautiful. I didn't wake her. I just got in the shower and started my day. She'd ask where I was, eventually. I'd lie. And it would be the last lie I ever told her. The countdown had begun. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I wanted her to unravel on my terms. Slowly, personally, and publicly. I began preparing quietly. I started removing anything of value from the house: tools, gear, documents, things that were mine before we met. I opened a second bank account, changed the password on my business accounts. She didn't notice. She was too busy texting on the couch, disappearing into client calls, acting like the world revolved around the lies she thought she controlled. Each night, she curled up beside me like nothing had changed. She was good at lying, but I was better at waiting. One Friday night, I told her I was going out of town for a roofing job, cash under the table, wouldn't be back until late Sunday. She barely looked up from her laptop and told me to be careful. No kiss. No question. I packed the truck with empty boxes and drove 2 blocks to Kent's garage. He handed me a beer, didn't ask anything. I stayed there that weekend, loading everything from my house into a rented storage unit, clothes, tools, photos, even the dog's favorite bed. By Sunday evening, the house looked like no one had lived there in months. She didn't notice until Monday morning. I came home before sunrise, showered, dressed, and left before she opened her eyes. That night, I waited. When she walked in and saw the bare walls, the cleared-out shelves, her face crumbled like paper. She called my name 3 times. I didn't answer. I was in the garage, waiting with one bag and the final words I'd ever speak to her. I handed her the keys and said, "It's yours now. Everything you broke." She opened her mouth, but I turned and walked down the driveway, into the truck, and didn't look back. My silence was the last gift I'd give her. I left the house with nothing more than my truck, a packed duffel, and peace. That's the thing about betrayal. When the truth finally settles, the silence afterward is addictive. I drove out of town and checked into a motel on the outskirts, near a truck stop where no one knew my name. The receptionist didn't ask questions. She handed me a key and pointed down a hallway, and I slept that night for the first time in months without dreaming of her. She called 37 times in the first 2 days. I counted, not because I cared, but because each one was proof that the walls were closing in. She texted me everything from panic to pleading. "Where are you? What's going on? Can we talk?" I read them with the same detached focus I used when estimating roofing jobs. She didn't deserve answers. Not anymore. The only truth she was owed was the vacuum I left behind. I didn't block her. That would have been a kindness. Instead, I left her with the ghost of me, there, but unreachable. By the end of the week, she resorted to calling Kent. He didn't answer, and when she knocked on his door, his wife told her to leave. Marissa never knew how much people saw. She thought she was clever, slipping between shadows. But small towns are built on whispers. It wasn't just Kent who had seen the car, the man, the staggered schedules that never added up. People talk. And now they were talking about her. About the man who vanished after she destroyed her marriage. About the woman who watched her life dissolve and didn't even know why. I heard she started drinking more. Friends stopped visiting. She left the firm 3 weeks after I left, citing mental health. But most people knew better. There's only so much credibility you can lose before people stop listening. I imagine her standing in the kitchen, looking at those empty walls, wondering how it all unraveled. What kills people like her isn't the loss, it's the confusion. She thought she was the one with power. She didn't realize I had been building the exit while she was making excuses. Some people want revenge in flames. Explosions. Grand scenes. But real revenge is quiet. It's leaving someone in the wreckage of their own choices with no lifeline. It's taking everything back, your time, your pride, your future, and never giving them a glimpse of it again. I helped a friend once. Fixed a broken window. And through that pane of glass, I saw everything differently. I saw truth. I saw decay. And I saw the beginning of my freedom.